The fans are marching. The owners are in chaos and panicking, and Chelsea are playing Manchester United this weekend. Welcome back to From the Shed End. Welcome back to another episode. Theo, first of all, how you doing?
I'm good. We're always in a good mood on Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. I feel a bit like an idiot on Friday because I made a stupid decision on Wednesday to watch Arsenal Sporting
you you picked the wrong game.
instead of Madrid Bayern, and everybody's talking how that was probably one of the games of the
Oh,
season.
it was
So much
amazing.
drama, so many goals. You get Mbappe, Kane, Elise, Arda Güler, all these amazing talents.
Mm.
And I was just there watching this dull 0-0, a very unsuccessful hate watch as well. I, don't- I,
Yeah,
just had, I, had this, I had a gut feeling that maybe Sporting could maybe do something, and it came very close a few times. Jenny Catano, I think, hitting the post, but
yeah.
other than that, it was a very unsuccessful hate watch. But how are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I was a sensible one out of the two of us because I didn't watch Arsenal Sport and I watched Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich, which was probably, like you said, one of the best games, if not of the season. I think within the Champions League tournament of all time. It just had everything. It had the red card. It had everything in there. So um, yeah, really good week for us. Obviously no Chelsea. It's always a bonus when your own team doesn't stress you out. But no, it's been good week. A lot to talk about in this episode. But before we do that, now I sent you this post this morning about Joe Cole, who clearly has been listening to From the Sheds because he also wants Robert Lewandowski to come to Chelsea alongside John Stones. Um, if there was a Premier League player from any club in the Premier League that you could see us trying to get, we not even that you would see us trying to get. Actually, if you just had a magic wand and you could just bring anyone from any club, any price, blank checkbook, who would it be?
I mean, there's a few names that I absolutely love at Chelsea. Of course, you'd love an Erling Haaland,
Mm,
potentially I don't know, like a Van Dijk style defender. But I think if we're talking realistically and maybe having kind of read a few rumors of who's a potential kind of player that's a realistic target, for me, I'd love Mario from Nottingham
mm,
Forest.
yeah,
And especially that's kind of a position that we're targeting. I think Fofana and Chalobah haven't really been that convincing this season. We're still unsure if Levi Colwill is going to come back, the same Levi Colwill we saw at the Club World Cup and last season. I think Tosin, Badiashile, Mamadou Sarr, they could all be shown the door this summer, potentially. We're not sure yet if Anselmino will be recalled from his loan or sent back out on loan. And I feel for me, Mourinho is the right type of defender Chelsea should go with. He's aggressive, he's progressive, he's Premier League proven, which seems like the big label we want now from our next signings this summer or the next transfer window. I think the one potential real caveat about a move for Maria would be that both him and Colwell are both left-footed.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the one thing that maybe might be a bit of an issue. We do need depth though amongst our defenders. I do like him. I like him. I watched the highlights of Nottingham Forest Porto yesterday. Kept a clean sheet against a very good Porto side who are flying in the Portuguese league. He's the type of defender who's very front-footed. He likes to step in early, make interceptions. He defends aggressively rather than just dropping off and letting kind of players come towards him. Excellent on the ball as well, which I think is what you need nowadays. You see kind of these defenders now that maybe started their careers early off as midfielders who are very comfortable on the
Mm,
ball. He seems to have that trait where he likes to carry the ball out from defense and break pressure. So wouldn't be surprised if we were to sign him. You would definitely see him pop up in the penalty box. He's got a few goals, I think, under his name at Nottingham Forest so far. He's also a big personality as well. I don't know if you've seen him, but he just wears his baggy shorts and he's got quite a particular build as well, which is what you kind of want from a defender. He could be like maybe that kind of personality we're looking to replace, having lost out on Rudiger a few summers ago. So I think that's something Chelsea have lacked over time, is maybe a big personality in defence as well. So yeah, while I think he's suit Chelsea, I think he could survive transition, start attacks, and he gives you both of those. He's adapted very well to the physicality and speed of the Premier League.
mm,
We're talking about Eghbali now kind of saying that he wants to change his project and target more ready-made players and balance kind of that youth and experience. And I think Mario fits that pivot better than any raw project signing. And what I like about him as well is Nottingham Forest signing from Corinthians back in 2023.
yeah.
And I think the Brazilian league is very, very underrated. I think we saw that at the Club World Cup last summer with these emerging talents at Botafogo, Palmeiras, Fluminense. There's a lot of good players in the Brazilian league. So I think he's really proven that he can kind of transition from the Brazilian league to the Premier League. And if he can prove that maybe, despite both being left-footed, he can play alongside Colwell, I think he should be the number one summer target come July.
Yeah, it's a good shout. And I saw bits of the Forest game yesterday. I thought they played really well. But overall, the season, I think he's been one of the standouts for Forest, hasn't he? I think alongside some of the others, Elliot Anderson and maybe Morgan Gibbs White alongside them. But he stands out defensively as one of the top consistent Premier League centre backs as well. I think that's where we've made mistakes in the past where we've gone for you know the Fafanas or we've gone for Tosin and that's on a free that still hasn't worked. So I think we need to find a balance of getting quality but maybe paying a reasonable price for a centre back. I like that shout, but I think um I've gone with Paul Van Heck from Brighton. I
Mm.
think I think he's right footed as well, which kind of counteracts the left sided thing. So he complements Levi Colwell. I think he's 6'2", which I think again we talk a lot about physicality, set pieces, the number of set pieces that we've conceded, over the last couple of seasons. So I think for me, him being the physical centre back alongside Levi Colwell when he's fit and ready to come back into the team for me would be brilliant. Averaging 5 clearances per game. For me, he's just 20. I think is he 20, 25? I think he is. So he's still in his peak in terms of his ceiling that he can reach as a defender. And we know that Chelsea BlueCo love Brighton players. So I mean, look, it's a match made in heaven. I think for me, I would go with him. I think he's brilliant in one-on-one situations as well. I just think we need to go and get. We talk about marquee signings all the time, don't we, Chelsea? And I think not that he's a marquee, but I think he's definitely a need. We talk about needle movers. I think he's a needle mover. I think if you look at him, Levi Colwell, Reece James, Mark Cucurella, you feel confident going into those games a bit more. I think or even Morello as well. But I think you go in a bit more confident. Mike Penders in goal. The goal difference might look a bit different next season with that back four and a goalkeeper in between the sticks.
I like that shout. I like that shout a lot. And if anyone's kind of listening to this thinking these are unrealistic signings, actually, Simon Phillips on Twitter, it was last week, he actually said that Chelsea are weighing up their options for a new centre back this summer, and I have identified 3 Premier League defenders for that shortlist.
Mm.
2 of those 3 are Murillo and Van Heck from Brighton, and the third one is Jared Brandthwaite from
Yeah.
Everton. So these are definitely realistic signings, and it does seem like we're targeting a ready-made, proven Premier League centre back. I like the fact Van Heck's 25. I think that age
Yeah.
profile is exactly what we need right now. You're probably going to get the best kind of 4 or 5 years out of him going forward as well. Maria's 23, so slightly younger. I did want to quickly ask you as well about potentially, I know you mentioned Penders, and it does seem like we're going to give him a real look this summer and maybe have him come back to Chelsea.
Mm.
But I did want to ask you about Alisson at Liverpool. I know he's struggling right now with an injury. There's talks of him going to Juventus with Bernardo Silva,
Yeah.
who maybe are kind of approaching the end of their time in the Premier League. Liverpool did sign Mamardashvili last summer to slowly maybe phase out Alisson. But would you take Alisson maybe on a free or kind of a cheap transfer fee to join Chelsea?
I think I don't want to sound like Bruce Forsyth, but if the price is right, then yeah, 100%. I think he's still a world class. You have to still put him in the world class bracket. I think he's a goalkeeper that won Liverpool the Premier League last season. He's won them the Premier League. So not on his own, but as a goalkeeper, you need to be confident, solid in between the sticks. So I think I would still take him. The injuries would concern me, and obviously, age as well, adding to those injuries. But as you said before, before we started recording, goalkeeper's lifespan is completely different to an outfield player, and you can play up until you're 40 plus if you keep your body in good shape and you don't pick up too many injuries. But he's a world class goalkeeper, and I think you have to. You again, like outfield players, we're talking about experience, lack of quality. Maybe you need to bring in a quality goalkeeper, not to play week in, week out, but someone who Mike Penders, Sanchez, if we keep him, can learn from and develop and get better, get to that level. So I think I'll take him, but I don't know. I think can Liverpool afford to let him go? I mean, I was gonna say Donnarumma, Mamardashvili isn't filling Liverpool fans with joy. So I don't know if he's available. 100%, yeah, we've got to go for him. What about
Yeah.
what do you reckon?
I think I would. I love like Brazilian players at Chelsea more often than not their successors. That's probably why
Yeah,
I mentioned Murillo. Um, and you look at like centre backs, especially go backtracking to Murillo, Alex, David Luiz, these
yeah,
Brazilian centre backs, they've adapted well and played in the
yeah.
Premier League. Um, I think this is not a Liverpool podcast, obviously, but Mamardashvili's had really good moments and also some moments where you've also questioned him. But
Mm.
there's no doubt that he's a top quality keeper. So I
Young,
think
young
he'll
as
be
well.
very young. I know he's
Yeah,
huge and he has that really kind of like thick beard, so you forget how young he
he's
is.
young.
But he is very young, and I think he was actually a name that I wanted at Chelsea back when he was
Yeah,
at Valencia
you called
a
it.
few seasons ago. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That being said, he's still when I've watched him at Liverpool, he hasn't been as good as he was at Valencia. But I also think that's because Valencia was struggling defensively, so he was just getting peppered with shots
Yeah,
whilst out in La Liga. Um, but yeah, anyone who's listening to this episode and hadn't listened to last week's, we also mentioned Bernardo Silva, Nathan
yeah.
Ake. We mentioned Lewandowski. I know he's not Premier League yet, but I think he's definitely European proven.
Listen,
That's
if
for
Joe
sure.
Cole wants him, we're on the
Yeah,
right track. If Joe Cole is someone that one of my favorite, as you know already, one of my favorite Chelsea players. So if he's on the same path as us, Joe Cole's definitely listened to our podcast. He has to have because he's come out and he said it a week later. So yeah, Lewandowski's a no brainer. You know, he's still quality, 100%.
100%. Players like Delap, Mark Gui, Joao Pedro would be able to learn so much from him, even if it was just for a season or two.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see what comes of it. I mean, there's a lot of talk. We're going to get onto the section around BlueCo later on. We might change our tune when we get there. But let's talk about Moises Caicedo because it's come out in reports from the Athletic that Chelsea are holding talks with Moises Caicedo with an improved contract offer on the table. He's already signed an 8-year deal until 2031 when he arrived. But apparently this is now further extension to that. Do you think it's a genuine football reward, or do you reckon this is a bit of a PR brief from BlueCo to try and spread some positivity before the protest tomorrow, before Manchester United's game?
I think it's definitely a reward to start off with. He's had a fantastic season. Maybe form's dropped off slightly come the new year. I think amongst a lot of Chelsea players, you look at Cucurella and the others as well. But there's no doubt that he's a world class centre mid, and especially with everything that's happened with Enzo, I'm sure the owners are keen to cut time down to a long deal until 2033, and that includes a pay rise as well. So he'll be keen to sign that. And I think timing wise, I think he'll probably Chelsea will want to time down to that contract because I think Ecuador, maybe alongside maybe Morocco and Norway, underdogs
Mm,
going into this World Cup, and I think
yeah,
he might showcase how good he can be on the biggest stage in world football. So there might be some Spanish clubs that might be lurking at Bayern Munich as well. But it also is quite suspicious in terms of timing. Is this being framed as a show of faith in the project at a
mm,
time when there's noise around other senior players? There's a big protest happening ahead of the Chelsea Manchester United game tomorrow evening. So it's almost like a smokescreen to kind of please the fans ahead of that, to maybe dumb out some of the noise as well, and maybe try to make that atmosphere tomorrow evening less toxic as well. We saw that as well with the Reece James contract extension. I think it
yeah,
came after we just got battered by, I can't remember, was it Everton or
yeah,
PSG, I think, and
yeah,
the timing of that almost felt like things aren't going well at the moment. But here's Reece James signing a new contract, so it could be the same with Caicedo as well.
mm,
We've got to remember he's still on a deal until 2031,
yeah.
which is still in
8
5
years,
years time.
5 years.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, it's an 8-year deal, wasn't it? So
yeah, now we're going to get him for another 2 years on top of that. So the owners are really, really keen not to lose him. And it could also be that maybe if we don't get European football this year, maybe again the following year, at least we would be able to sell him for a big or monstrous kind of a transfer fee as well.
mm,
But it's clear that Chelsea and us fans see him as one of our most important players and midfielders, and potentially even a leader in our team. I know he had the armband against City and he made that awful mistake as well. But I think we're both on the same page. He's a world class player. Just small moments sometimes where he just sees red, quite
yeah.
literally, or he makes small, silly mistakes. But yeah, I think this would be a great kind of contract extension for the player and the club.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, look, I know he's got those discipline issues in him. You know, he's picked up some stupid yellow cards, some really stupid red cards. But I think when you look at overall what he's offered since he's signed for the club, I think you have to. I feel like, we talk about price tags a lot in football, in modern day football, and I feel like he is given us value for money. He's one of the few at Chelsea that I think you look at Enzo, there's a bit of question marks about him, his loyalty and all the rest of it. But I feel like with Caicedo, he even during those periods with Enzo was sort of, coming out and talking about he wants to live in Madrid. The narrative from Caicedo was completely different, that he wants to leave a legacy at Chelsea. He wants to be part of the BlueCo model, whatever that is going forward. He wants to be part of it. So I think it works both ways. Look, the club get him for another 2 years. So if a club does want to come in, there's an additional 2 years on top of that. So you think a bit more additional millions if we do end up selling him. But let's hope you want to see a player see out his contracts. I mean, he's got an 8-year deal. He's got 5 years left. He'll get another additional two. That's 7 years of a top quality, world class midfielder at the club. So I'm looking at it from a positive point of view. I do feel there is a hint of PR in there. I'll be
Mm.
honest. I feel like it is very timed that it's coming out 24 hours before the protest, and like you said, somehow to suppress some of the noise that is going to be probably very loud and clear tomorrow, if not in the stadium around it before kickoff. So yeah, it's a win-win. We get a world-class midfielder for another 2 years, and the club, if they do sell him, there's an additional 2 years added onto a contract. So any club coming in, you'd think would have to pay a bit more than they were going to pay, if he doesn't sign that deal. So it's a win-win. I see it as a win-win.
Yeah, and one thing that I will praise this BlueCo ownership for is how they've lowered the wage structure at
Yep.
Chelsea, and I think now this is a sign that we've got a player. Maybe I think he was still earning quite a lot because we did do quite a lot to get him from uh, from Brighton, but now that he's getting a pay rise from this contract extension, it's a sign that he's being rewarded for his good performances and the hard work he's put in.
Yep.
And quite interesting as well, I was listening to actually the Peter Crouch podcast recently, and I think he was interviewing Jurgen Klopp
Okay.
recently, and Jurgen Klopp actually mentioned how he was going all out to sign Caicedo in that summer when we were
That
competing with
period.
Brighton. Yeah. And apparently Jurgen Klopp actually called up Caicedo, and Caicedo just literally full on told him, like, I only want to join Chelsea. That's the only club I want to be joining this summer. So when there's that kind of bargaining war negotiating war between Chelsea and Liverpool for Caicedo,
Mm.
I think there was that period where Caicedo even refused to train, or he didn't play in that preseason match. And I like that. I like that, that some Chelsea players soon to be Chelsea players just have Chelsea in mind. And this was even before, kind of during that turbulent period where we hadn't secured European football.
Yep.
Liverpool, I think, were in the Champions League. So yeah, he believed in things from the start, and this contract extension probably means that, we're not just collecting prospects, but we're also building around elite players at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's well put in terms of the assessment. I wanted to ask you, because I know obviously we have put constraints, I think, on the wage bill, haven't we? Do you think that's a overall positive thing? Because I feel like with the wage bill, especially again modern day football, today's football, you almost have to kind of compete a little bit with
Yeah.
the others. We missed out, I think, potentially on Elise, who I was watching on, the middle of the week. If we had Elise in that team, he's an amazing player. We missed out because of wages. Ultimately, we didn't want to pay the wages that he wanted. Do you feel like that's going to come back a little bit, where in the next 2 or 3 season transfer windows, we're going to probably miss out on another Victor Osimhen because we just don't want to pay those
Yeah.
wages? Do you reckon that's going to be a bit of a stumbling block for us going forward?
That was the other name I was going to mention, Victor Osimhen. I feel like we couldn't really come to an agreement with his wages, and that's eventually why we missed out when he was still at Napoli. That summer, I think it was 2024, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did mention it's a very positive thing they've done by lowering the wage structure. Where we had players at the time like Koulibaly, Aubameyang, kind of
Yeah.
earning a
Sterling.
lot. Sterling,
Barkley, was
uh,
Barkley part of? Did he get his contract paid up
probably,
as well?
yeah,
Yeah.
Barkley, and even potentially like Kepa and Havertz and all these players. A big exodus we had, I think, was mainly linked to those players' high wages as
Yeah.
well. But then now, if we're kind of changing this approach, and rather than focusing on kind of these raw talents, we're focusing more on Premier League proven players. If we're going to attract an Osimhen, we're going to attract an Elise, we're going to attract Murillo, or these quality players, or even potentially a Rudiger once his
Mm.
contract runs down this summer. We're going to have to play close to 200k a week
Yep.
for these type of players, even more. But yeah, that's the kind of one kind of caveat or punishment of trying to lower the wage structure. We're not going to attract quality player, like proven experienced players. Sure thing, maybe like an Andre Santos, a Barco, potentially an Anselmino. They'll be happy to maybe collect 40, 50,000 a week because they're moving to the Premier League, playing for Chelsea, living in London.
Yeah.
But if you want a Rudiger, you want a Lise, you want an Osimhen, you're gonna have to pay the big bucks on their wages.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it kind of segues us into the next part of the. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of talk. You mentioned it before around the process that's taking place before the Manchester United game tomorrow evening outside Stamford Bridge. Now, the Chelsea Supporters Trust has released what I would say is quite a brutal public letter to BlueCo, Behdad Eghbali as well. They've warned of irreversible toxicity in the fan base. They've highlighted that the financial black hole, the lack of communication, the treatment of match-going fans as customers, and the lack of progress on stadium redevelopment are the key things why the protest essentially is taking place tomorrow. I know that the CST aren't just responsible for the protest. I think it's a collective, collaborative protest that's been organised. But the CST used the word irreversible toxicity. Have the owners, in your opinion, officially crossed that point of no return with the Stamford Bridge crowd?
I think so. Yeah. I think no matter what happens next, if they kind of continue down this approach of treating fans like customers and not like loyal match-going fans, outpricing those people like myself.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I literally got my successful ticket application for the Wembley semi-final.
Mm.
£90. £90 for a semi-final at Wembley, which for me is back in the day I'd pay like I think 40 or 50 or
Yeah.
60, but never £90. And it's Leeds at the end of the day. It's not like we're playing Barcelona, Bayern Munich, or this. It's Leeds. I know there's a historical rivalry at Wembley, especially against
Normally
Leeds,
I'd say
but
no disrespect to Leeds, but no, you're right. It's literally
yeah,
just Leeds. It is literally just Leeds.
there you go. But yeah, I think they've crossed the line now, and there's the relationship amongst the fans and the owners is beyond repair. I know Eghbali kind of wanted to try to almost repair certain things by mentioning that we care, because maybe fans have the impression that they don't care and he wants the club to be successful. They're focusing on delivering that on-pitch performance. That's the plan. We haven't really seen enough evidence of that, and they're trying to improve and plan and tweak things that aren't working. I think now what worries me the most is this kind of like they've tried this project, this vision of these young managers, these young players, and now they've admitted that it hasn't worked as well. So, and they've upset a lot of managers in the past to call Pochettino, even Maresca. They mentioned previously that it's never their strategy or their approach to sack a manager midway through the season, but they've done that twice. They've done that with Potter, and they've now done that with Maresca. So it seems like even that is not something that they can stay truthful on. And I think there are a few things they've done right, and it have been small signs at times. Like the Club World Cup, we saw like a united team, we saw a good manager, we saw a really good defensive performance and attacking performance against PSG in the final. So there have been a few things that they've done right, but now, like you said, they want to add more ready-made players to be part of this project. But I think it's time we stop calling it a project now, because a project usually lasts maybe a season or two. Was this like 4 or 5 years of BlueCo, and we still haven't seen actually any kind of like signs of this coming to fruition. So yeah, it's getting frustrated, this word project or vision or plan. And I mean, the sporting directors also need to be held accountable. But I'm all for the protest or the march on Saturday. I think Strasbourg fans are also coming down to London, or maybe they're Strasbourg fans within London. I know their team actually won 4-0.
It was a good game.
Last night, a really good game. Omega back and scoring as well. Ben Chilwell keeping a clean sheet.
I don't know if you got to saw the melee with the goal in the corner. The goal is a bit of a.
I haven't. I've actually got the tab on my laptop with the highlights. I still haven't watched them yet. But
credit to Ben. All I'll say is credit to Ben Chilwell, because he didn't shy away from anything, and that's what I mean about leaders and that again. You want that sort of like, I don't want to say angriness. You don't want a Roy Keane in your team all the time, but you want someone who's going to show a bit of fight, a bit of desire, and back the team on and off the field a little bit. And that's the Ben Chilwell side of it. But no, I think you're right. I think that I mean, look, I did a video yesterday about how financially I think the club's in an absolute mess. I think Roman sold the club. 19 years having a club, running it. I would say successfully well. You look at the trophies that we won under Roman, the managers that we had, the players that we acquired under Roman Abramovich. To see where the club is now, to see how much money has been spent, the legally binding obligations that were put into the sale of Chelsea Football Club to BlueCo, and none of them, like you just said, it's not even a project anymore. None of those things have materialized. There's no stadium talk. The women's team hasn't. I'd actually say the women's team's probably regressed rather than progressed. If I'm being honest, 100%. And the youth academy, yes, is still very good, but I think when you've got such a good structure and foundation and infrastructure around it already, it's hard to dismantle that. I think it's almost like a conveyor belt of just good players in there. So, but in terms of development, you don't really see it. So I think that side of it, I think I'm more concerned about now in terms of finances, in terms of what does it mean not to make the Champions League? What does it mean for the likes of Enzo who wants out, Cole Palmer? We just spoke about Moises Caicedo. Are they now collateral damage? Are they the assets that are going to have to subside for the fact that we need to recoup and we need to start paying back some loans that we've now got out by JP Morgan and the Bank of America and all the rest of it? So that concerns me more than what's happening on the pitch. I think that's, it really does concern me. And like I said yesterday, I don't think there's two things can be right. You can still want to support the club, which I think every Chelsea fan wants to do. Every Chelsea fan wants to support the badge, support even the players that are on the pitch, because it's not their fault. Yes, they've got to do better in terms of the quality that they're putting out, but it's not their fault they got signed to the club. It's not the club signed them. They're there now, so we've got to back them. But you can also want BlueCo to either improve or to remove themselves from the football club as well. So I think those two things can be right. You can still want to go and support the club and protest as well, but you can also want improvement in whatever this so-called project is. I just think it's sort of dividing the fan base, but I feel like the fan base is slightly coming back together after being divided for so long a little bit. I don't know if it feels that way when you're there at the games or before the games, before kickoff.
Absolutely. I mean, like you correctly said, the only thing us fans want is performances on the pitch, good results, good memories watching Chelsea again. We don't
Mm,
want to be living in the past like Liverpool and Arsenal have for so many years. And the
yeah.
frustration is more than just the results. It's about the model, the huge spending, like you said, and these financial consequences that might arise, the
Mm,
lack of clarity, and that feeling that Chelsea have been treated has treated like a long-term project rather than an elite club that we should be competing now.
yeah.
4 or 5 years, we should be competing, being in the semi-finals of the Champions League, fighting for top to win the Premier League come April, May, and we're none of those at the moment. And when we watched Chelsea against PSG, it was men against boys, and that's kind
Mm.
of a sign. They signed Desiree Doué, Barcola, they signed these top quality talents, whereas we signed Garnacho and Gittins. But like you said, it's it's not these players' faults, and we've just got to support them now. We've got to support any player, any manager that's in the dugout as well. But
Mm,
unfortunately, sometimes they're just not cut out to be that level that we need them to be.
yeah.
Um, and I know that these owners, they're businessmen rather than kind of football fans like Abramovich was as well. Um, and he said things right. He talked about care, commitment, trophy, wanting ready-made players, but the fans now want proof of that. They don't just want those messages.
Yeah.
They're constantly in these Twitter spaces listening to what the fans say, but now it's time they actually listen to us and actually implement these changes at the club. Otherwise, these protests will be happening before games, after games, during games. We might be seeing what Tottenham fans do and walkouts midway through games.
Yeah.
And I know you laughed a few episodes ago saying we could be, when I said we could be in this situation that Tottenham are in.
Yeah.
But I genuinely think this the next season or the season after, if we continue down this route of this project and players, really important players, get injured, like Reece James, Palmer, Caicedo, which Tottenham have had with Kudos, Anderson,
Yeah.
Kuleveski, Bergval,
Yeah.
then I think we could definitely we might be hovering around the relegation zone this
I
time
think
next
so.
season.
I think so.
Especially if Enzo Palmer no longer believe in his project and want to jump ship as well. So yeah, that's why I'm almost like not wanting to laugh at Tottenham straight away, because
No.
I think we're heading down that route as well.
Yeah. I think I mean I said it as well. I said it a couple of weeks ago, and I got a bit of backlash for it on social media. But I think we generally are on that. United weren't far away from it too long ago. They've sorted themselves out a bit now, but a couple of seasons ago they were hovering. They were really poor. Tottenham, won the Europa League last season, and they're now 4 games away from being in a championship, playing Bristol City next season. So it can happen to anyone. No one's untouchable. I think, yeah, I think the protest is really going to be, look, the owners now do not want any negativity around the football club. I think the fact that Eghbali is coming out and he's speaking very openly, very candidly about mistakes that have happened and things that they think that they've done well, things that they need to improve on, tells you that the noise is working. If there was nothing coming from them, I think you'd be a bit like, okay, it's another protest. Nothing will happen. There'll be couple of hundred people there, and the game will carry on. We might lose, we might win, but next week we'll be back to normal. I think the noise has been continual for a while now, and there's a blog which I mentioned yesterday, not a project cfc.com, which it's really well put together. It's goes into breaks everything down into the most, for me, who after a long day at work, I just need something very easy and light to read. That is it. It gives you the most, the key points, the key facts of what you need to know. But 2,000 Strasbourg fans coming over. I want to ask you. I feel sorry for Strasbourg because I feel like their whole identity. They've been through this a lot longer than we have, and their whole club has been stripped apart. They're now literally the feeder club for Chelsea, but they're taking the bigger hit for it because whenever they get a good player, or I think they're eighth, I think in Liga at the moment, but whenever they get a good player, they get taken from them. Even Liam Rosenior gets taken from them, and they come into Chelsea. You look at Lyon as well. I think Aries have just literally the creditors have been in and taken over Lyon because they can't pay back the money we've loaned from the same people. So do you feel like Strasbourg is probably going to be the first big hit in terms of under this BlueCo project? That's going to be the one that's going to feel the pain the most.
I mean, like we said, it's not about results. It's about kind of the model, the identity of the club. And actually, Strasbourg have had a relatively good season. I think they're
Yep.
competing, in Europe in the semi-finals. They were, I think, in the top 6 only a couple of weeks ago. I think maybe they've dropped off slightly now. But like you said, they just lost their identity. They're just seen it now as Chelsea's feeder club. As soon as a player gets good, like a Mega, he comes to Chelsea.
Yeah.
And, we take Mamadou Sarr from them. We give them Ansel Mino. We take their manager. We get them Gary O'Neill instead.
And Ben
It seems
Chilwell.
like and Ben Chilwell, when we couldn't
Yeah.
find him a club in Premier League, we just send him off to Strasbourg.
Mm.
And if I was a Strasbourg fan, I'd feel like almost as soon as you get to enjoy watching a player, he's gone. You feel like we're just being used to kind of profit the wealthy or the rich in a way, like take from the
Yeah.
poor, give to the rich, almost like a Robin Hood of the Ligue 1 for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And it's not just Strasbourg. I think this kind of dual ownership kind of model of clubs. We see it. I think it's Crystal Palace and Lyon
Yeah.
also have that. I think Everton might have it with another team as well. With I forgot the name of it. I think it's the American owners. I think are they called 555? I think they have like an ownership with Hertha
Yeah, they
Berlin as
do.
well.
Yeah, they do.
Something like and it's sad as well because, like we said, these American owners or these owners just see it more as like a model to profit probably their cash cow or their North Star rather than have these smaller clubs actually gain anything from it. And I wouldn't be surprised at one point if the owners had to choose between Chelsea or Strasbourg to compete in one European competition. They favour Chelsea probably.
Yeah.
So it is the sad reality of things. And I think the protests tomorrow are long overdue. So it's going to be interesting tomorrow ahead of I think they're marching from the Wolfpack down the Fulham Road to Stamford Bridge. So it's definitely going to cause a bit of a stir ahead of kickoff.
I was just about to say the one thing I do want to, and I think I said it for the lot. Was it before Brentford the last? I can't remember. I think it was Brentford the last protest.
Yeah, there was one. Yeah.
I want it to be a peaceful one. I don't want the noise. I don't want the outcome to be just Chelsea fans being stupid. Because I think if that's the narrative, it will lose. The message will be lost. And I think as long as it's a proper, I think the last one was actually quite peaceful to an extent. Obviously, as peaceful can be in terms of a football protest. But when I say peaceful, I mean no stupidness, no idiots.
8 o'clock kickoff as well. They might be drinking
That's my
all
point.
day. Like,
That's my
yeah.
point. So I don't want it to be a stupid because the message would be lost. And to be honest, it takes the pressure off BlueCo if that's the case. You start talking about this idiotic Chelsea fans that have done something stupid. So if we're honestly want change, then let's make the change happen in the right way, and let's hope that this is the start of either the end of BlueCo or a change of direction from BlueCo, or even a hierarchical change at the top. Maybe someone relinquishes their the power at the top and they appoint someone else in there. Something has to change. So let's hope this is the start of that. But United tomorrow, Manchester United. I'm going to call this. I mean, obviously we had the 4-3 in between it, but the draw derby. I think there's been about 5 draws in this fixture in previous times. Obviously the infamous Cole Palmer goal to make it 4-3 a couple of seasons ago. But what's your thoughts going into this game? I mean, we really do need I mean, I don't think I've said it for a while, but this is really is a must-win game tomorrow evening at 8 p.m.
Yeah, we spoke last week about Chelsea Man City being a silver lining. Maybe, you know, it allows City to gain some momentum and catch up Arsenal. But this game tomorrow, it's a must win. It's really important. Manchester United are third on 53 points. Chelsea are sixth on 48 points. We're in poor form. Chelsea have only won one of our last 7 Premier League games. And we've drawn the other 2 and lost the other 4. Manchester United have lost their last 3 league matches, and they lost I think on Monday against Leeds United, and we could make it 4 straight league losses. Sorry, we've lost the last 3. Sorry, and it could be 4 straight league losses for the first time, or only the second time this century, which is a really abysmal reading, actually. I think this one's so important. I think it was this time last year we beat them, I think, with a Cucurella header, and that allowed us to kind of go into that last couple games against Nottingham Forest and Newcastle, knowing we needed a win in one of those 2 matches. And like you mentioned, I think this game, I think there was like 2 or 3 consecutive seasons where it was either 0-0 or 1-1. But in the last few seasons at Stamford Bridge, we beat them 1-0. Season before that, we beat them 4-3 with that Palmer late-minute goal. We drew 1-1 with them in, I think that was November 2022, sorry. And then again, the year before, we drew 1-1 with them. I think Jorginho penalty after Jadon Sancho actually scored for United. And then the year before that, it was a 0-0. So it's a bit of a mixed bag of results against United. I think positive for us is they've got Martinez suspended after his hair pull on Calvert-Lewin. Maguire's suspension got extended as well. So I think they might have to be forced to play, I think, Yerry Lino and potentially even Casemiro as a centre-back, or potentially Mino or Aiden Haven, potentially as well.
I think it'd be Heaven.
Heaven, yeah. United's form, so they've lost 2 of their last 4. So they've got I think they started off really well, but it has kind of been a bit more shaky recently. And defensively, they've kept 3 clean sheets in the last 13 matches. So defensively, they're not as strong. I mean, they're almost like us. They concede a lot. And before that, they only had 1 clean sheet in their last 21 away matches. So we've got to score. That being said, we haven't scored a single goal in our last 3 consecutive Premier League matches.
Yeah.
We're looking at the defeat to Newcastle, defeat to Everton, and the defeat last week to City. That's, was it, I think 7 goals in total, and we haven't scored a single one. I mean, we conceded 7 and haven't scored a single one. So it's going to be tough. But I think if we want to just kind of have any kind of momentum or hope going into the last couple of games of the season to get in that top 5, we need to win on Saturday and get 3 points tomorrow at 8:00.
Yeah, I watched United against Leeds and they actually played better with 10 men, which was surprising. So I worry about us in this game. I don't see where the goals come from. I know João Pedro has been in fine form this season. I think he's 4th or 5th in the top goal scorers for the Premier League this season. But I do worry that we're coming into this with really bad form, really bad form. So, what would your predicted lineup be in this game? And let's try and, I mean, is it sort of self-explanatory? Do we change the 2 centre backs? Because I don't think they played well against City. If you think back to João Heto and Fofana, there was so. I mean, I showed my son, who's 8, by the way, he's 8, and even he could pick out the defensive mistakes in Chelsea's 3 goals last weekend against City. So, do you change that back line at all? Do you change anything?
I mean, it's awkward because if you do change it, who do you bring in? Do you bring in Tosin? Do you bring in Badger Shield? Do you bring in Mamadou Sarr? We have a lot of depth, but we don't have that quality as well, which is a real struggle now that Chalobah and Colwell are injured. I wouldn't make too many changes personally, because I still think that's probably our strongest 11 we can see on the screen, especially with Fernandez returning from that 2-match punishment, replacing Andre Santos. I would keep it as it is, and maybe actually I would bring in Tosin over Hato. That's the one change I would make, and that's actually the predicted lineup I had in defence for the City game. And defensively, we were actually quite solid in that first half against City, but then the wheels came off in the second half, and it was an absolute shambles for all 3 of the goals. I mean, Andre Santos not marking, O'Reilly, Caicedo mucking about with the ball when Sanchez passed it to him. But yeah, if we just cut out those mistakes and we kind of really do our homework and man mark our players on corners, I think hopefully we can kind of, I don't want to say keep a clean sheet because I think keeping a clean sheet right now is really, really, really optimistic. But
Adventurous.
getting the win, adventurous, yeah. I think you spoke about that Brentford game. I don't think we've kept a clean sheet since that game in the Premier League,
Yeah, it's
um,
not good.
which was I think mid-January time. But yeah, that would be my lineup. So for anyone on the audio, it's Sanchez in goal, Gusto right back because I think James is still not fit.
Yeah.
Tosin Adabarayo with Fafana as the centre backs. Not ideal, but we've got to deal with what we've got. Cucurella left back, Caicedo, Fernandez as the two-man midfield with Estabao as the 10, Neto, Palmer on the wings, and Joao Pedro as a striker. I think Palmer and Estabao are kind of interchangeable with that number 10 and kind of right wing position. Um, and yeah, I think maybe the reason I'd have Tosin over Hato is, yeah, you've got him there as a striker, Sesko.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a giant, he's tall, and we
Yeah.
need to have that kind of strength and that height on set pieces to mark him. And same thing with Casemiro, he's a real aerial threat as well. He likes a goal against Chelsea,
Yeah.
so we're gonna have to really make sure he's he's kept quiet. But I look at that defense: Mazraoui, Euro, Heaven,
I was just
Luke
about to
Shaw.
say,
Yeah, it's
you can break it down very easily if you, and even the midfield too. I mean, Agate, if you speak to United fans after Monday's game, they will all tell you that he's probably one of the worst signings that Manchester United have ever made, and that's coming from them. So I look at Casemiro, who has been brilliant. He scored a brilliant goal,
brilliant.
brilliant header, brilliant ball into him. But you can break down these two in midfield for me, and I think if you look at the two midfields, you look at even throw Fernandez and Estevao into there, or if it's going to be Palmer and maybe in the 10, isn't it? So you throw those in. I would favor Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Cole Palmer to take on the three of Fernandez, Casemiro, and Agate in their midfield.
Yeah, I mean it's a blow for United, so it's positive for us. But I think Mino's kind of like it's a race against the clock for him to be fit for this game.
Yeah,
So there's a chance he misses out as well. And like you said, if he misses out, it's probably going to be Ugarte, Casemiro as their two-man midfield. And yeah, Ugarte hasn't really been. We've probably jinxed it now. He's going to have like a man of the match game against us. I think the ones we've really got to be careful of, obviously Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, and potentially
could be
Mbumo if
Mbumo
he
as
comes
well.
off the
Yeah,
bench.
could
Yeah,
be Mbumo ahead of him. I wanted to talk about Cole Palmer because I feel with Cole Palmer, I mean, he's been okay over. He obviously came back from the injury, but I just look at his stats this season. In the Premier League, especially 21 appearances, 9 goals, 1 assist. Um, he's having a quiet season. If you look at it compared to last season, for instance, I mean, he was brilliant last season. You know, we haven't finished the season yet, but we're there or thereabouts. And you just look at his stats from last season compared to this season. Even with that injury, I just feel like, do you think it is just he had off-field things going on, or is he just played too much football? That could be another thing. He's played 4 international tournaments. He played the Club World Cup over the space of a couple of seasons. So is it just a case of burnout maybe for Cole Palmer?
I think it's a mix of things, and it's interesting to see what he said after the Port Vale game, when he said he feels like he's back to his best and back fit and back playing the football that he was playing over the last couple of seasons. But I still think there's not enough evidence that he's
Mm,
the same Cole Palmer we saw last season. I think it was the 2-year anniversary a couple of days ago when he scored 4 goals against Everton.
yeah,
I mean, can't actually see Cole Palmer scoring 2 goals, let alone four this season. So, especially with the World Cup around the corner, I don't think he's
yeah,
a guaranteed starter.
yeah. It's worrying because I think he's. I mean, we were talking about him as one of the Ballon d'Or players, and he looked, but I just think the injuries have taken their toll. I think he's played a lot of football. I mean, remember he's still young, and I know I use that term, that phrase on here quite often. That young players, but you're playing week in week out. You're playing 2, maybe 3 games a week. In the space of a 8-day period, you're training 3 times a week. It's a lot. So yeah, I do wonder about him whether he just needs maybe a bit of time out of the game. I don't know who you bring in to replace him if he doesn't start, but he's not going to want to miss this game. I'm sure he'll have friends and family that are Manchester
Mm.
United fans and all the rest of it. So yeah, I don't think he misses it, but I do think end of the season, if he doesn't make that World Cup squad, it probably wouldn't be the end of the world for him.
No, I also think Rosenior is not the right manager to unlock the best out of Cole Palmer. We
Hundred
saw it.
percent.
We saw. I know since Rosenior's come in, I think his form's really dropped off a cliff. I think Maresca got the best out of him last season. Pochettino probably got, the amazing Cole Palmer as a winger in his first season at Chelsea, where he got, I think, over 20 goals that season. But since Rosenior's come in, I think Palmer looks a lot more lethargic, a bit more lackluster. He loses the ball a lot more often, misplaces passes. Can't really all just pin that down on the manager. Palmer's got to take a part of the blame as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, we just need him to kind of find his shooting boots and be the Cole Palmer that came within the top 10 of winning the Ballon d'Or only, was it a couple of months ago?
Couple of months, yeah. So we'll have to see. Let's hope he has a solid game, because I think it would hopefully springboard us into the final hurdles of the Premier League. Let's hope we can get 3 points. I am not confident, so I'm going to let you go first with your prediction, your scoreline. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow evening?
I think we've almost kind of like shared the answer previously. This is the draw derby in a way. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. And I think we didn't speak about Mark Guehi, another Chelsea player scoring against us last week. I wouldn't be surprised if that one guy's back fit now on the bench for Manchester United and maybe comes on and scores an equaliser. I'm not going to say his name, just his initials, MM.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to go with 1-1.
Yeah, I think we'll lose. I think we'll lose. I think, and I hope we don't, because I think it'll play into a lot of the narrative that's going to happen before the game as well. So it'll be a very hostile environment if we do. But I think 2-1. I think we'll lose 2-1 on the night. I'd love us to get a result. But I just think off the back of the way United played with 10 men, they battled through, they looked very sharp, even with, I'll even be honest, even with 11, I thought they had chances in that game against Leeds. So yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 United. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love us to be, still in the conversation for top 4, top 5, but I just don't see the wins are coming from anymore with the way Rosenior's talking in the press conferences.
Yeah, don't see where the wins come from. I don't see where the goals come from at the moment either.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, we'll be lucky even maybe to get a draw like I'm maybe optimistic about. But let's just hope somehow we manage to get a result and City get a result on Sunday as well.
Yeah, that's more important than anything I think this season, to be fair. But Theo, as always, thank you very much. Pleasure. Yeah, I'm sure you'll no doubt be updating us on the social medias before kickoff and during kickoff and full time as well. So make sure you head over to the social accounts this weekend to check that out. Link is in the description as always. Make sure you leave your thoughts, your comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Enjoy the weekend whenever you get to it.